We've been evacuated. A programme of records made and presented by Olive Shapley.
Hello, Mum and Dad. Don't get worried about us. We're all very happy here, and I don't think anybody wants to go home yet. We go on the moors nearly every night and watch all the cows and the sheep grazing and the river flowing. We're quite near it now, and we go playing football on the football pitch and watch the colliery. Last week the boys and girls had a match of netball, and there was 14 girls and 3 boys, but the girls won us.
If all the children who have been evacuated were given the chance to talk to their parents over the air, I think this is the kind of message that most of them would want to send. We took our recording van last week to a small Lancashire mill town about 15 miles from Manchester, and found almost without exception that the children there were happy, excited by their new life, and pleased with the new friends they were making. When we arrived, the streets were given over to children. The high school girls sauntering arm in arm up the main street in their tidy brown uniforms, children playing football in the steep cobbled side streets, children going shopping for their new mothers, children making friends with policemen and ARP wardens. We finally fixed on a crowd of children from one of Manchester Central schools, who were leaning over a wall, hopefully looking for fish in a very dirty mill stream. Most of them were carrying front door keys. Their new parents were working in the mills, and the children, who had only been in the town 3 days, were already custodians of the little grey stone houses. They were very ready to talk to us, but a little shy of the microphone at first.
Now, what about you two? What's your name?
Cynthia Green.
How old are you?
14.
And you're?
Frances Ravenscroft, 14.
And you were both evacuated on
September the 1st.
We know all about that. How are you liking it? What do you think about it all?
I think it's very nice, and we've been taken into the homes of the people and made very homely on the first night. And
everybody's very jolly.
Everybody's jolly, and
everybody speaks to you.
And as they came from one of Manchester's most crowded areas, I asked them what they thought of the country.
Is it very different from town life, do you think?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. It's a lot nicer than the town life. We
more fit.
The country air is a lot different than the town air, and a lot nicer in the country than it is in town, especially Manchester.
You don't feel homesick or anything?
No, not got a chance for that.
Do you think any of them do, even the young ones?
Oh, I don't think any of them, not even the young ones, feel homesick.
They all had stories to tell about the journey, that astonishingly orderly and uneventful exodus of September the 1st. And here's one small boy's description of his arrival at his billet.
I just went in and they said, look, they've sent us a little boy. And I took my coat off and I asked if I could go out. And he said yes. So I went out and started playing in the streets.
But during the 3 days he'd been there, he'd found other things to do. A whole new world had opened up for him.
Now, anybody else got anything to say?
There's,
Come on, the boy...
There's an old castle on the hill. It's a ruin. And we went on the moors last week and started playing in it. And we looked down on the town and it looked all right.
Looked all right, did it?
Yes, we could see right across the town. And it's nice food here, and it's nice. And there's a lot of country you can play in and have some fun.
But evacuation has its problems, as we soon found out.
We'd have a nice holiday, I think, if it wasn't for the girls that have to with us. They're always interfering and spoiling our games. Yeah, I'll say.
Do you find that you've been put with your friends mostly in the houses?
Yes, as far as it was possible, they paired us off with the boys or girls that we wanted to be with.
But in the course of conversation, we found out that Willie had other problems too.
Hey, Willie, is it true you were kissed by a teacher?
Yes, on the first night we went to the house, she says, boys, I'm going to behave like a mother to you. And she kissed us good night and tucked us in. Poor Willie. Poor Willie. And, it was terrible. And at any rate, now at nights we stay out until she's gone to bed.
At this point, we thought it was time to ask one of the children who lived in the town what he thought of this evacuation business.
And what do you think about evacuation?
Well, it's been carried out all right. I've got 2 girls in our house and I've had a very nice time showing them around. I was a little bit disappointed when they brought 2 girls to the house. I had expected 2 boys, but they're turning out all right anyway.
You'll train them?
Yes, I've been showing them all around the countryside and Bacup. It's not a very large town to Manchester, but they say they like it.
Did you notice, by the way, how different his dialect was from the Mancunian of the other children, and that in a town not 15 miles from Manchester? And here are some of the grown-ups of the town to give their views. If some of you mothers in other parts of the country are still worried about the welcome your children will have, these records may help to reassure you a little.
Mrs. Hindle, you haven't got any children, I understand.
No, I have no room, or else I would have liked them. And my little girl cried every night because I wouldn't have any. She said, go and find one. But if I had have done, we'd have been crushed. Or else I would have too. And I wouldn't have minded a little one because I could have pushed one in. But she wanted one her size and I couldn't possibly manage it.
How big's your family?
2, a girl and a boy. But we've only 2 bedrooms.
Oh, well, you couldn't really have one?
Not at all, no.
And you're really disappointed that you can't?
Yes, I would have liked one.
Well, I expect there's a lot of things you can do, even without having them in your house. I mean, you can help entertain them and that.
My children goes playing with them, like.
And they like having them here, I suppose, the children.
Yes, they do. And there's lots. A little girl next door to us, she says she's coming living here after she's married.
Here's Mrs. Howarth. There's no doubt about her feelings either.
Now, Mrs. Howarth, I believe you've got 2 children billeted with you, haven't you?
Yes. Yes, and they're very nice girls, too. 1 13 and 1 10 in September this month. And we've had a grand time together. I've been married 16 years with no children of my own. And I'm very glad to have these 2 girls, for I've always longed for 2. And we've been over the hills, rambling and running about. And we have a girl, Frances, they're a friend with them. She comes and goes out with us. And on Sunday tea, we had a party for them, and Lyman's buff, and hide and seek, all the games we could think of. And I think they had a grand time. They're here with me now, and they're thinking of going swinging this afternoon, enjoying themselves.
What does your husband think about it?
Oh, he's glad to have them. He's just thrilled at having them. And he says he hopes to stay forever.
And here's another housewife from the same town. She has 2 children of her own, but she's no less ready to welcome the newcomers. I asked her if she could manage on the money she had for them.
And you find you can manage on the government allowance for them?
Yes, I of course, we've only had them a few days yet, and they're not bad to suit. I asked them what they'd like, and they just say that as long as it's their own cooked food, they're satisfied. They've had cooked dinner each day, and I asked each of them yesterday what they'd like for tea, and they said, oh, anything. I said, do you like homemade chips? They said, yes, we love them. And they both had a second helping of them and enjoyed them.
Well, at this point in our recording, the mill opposite began to empty for the midday break, and the children rushed across the road to look for their foster parents, and in 1 or 2 cases to drag them up to the microphone. Mr. Brown, in dungarees and clogs and probably wanting to get home to his dinner, stopped for a moment to tell us of the 2 girls that had been billeted on him.
The people have made them very welcome here and done all they could for them. And the children seem to be enjoying themselves.
What did your wife think about it?
Well, my wife was, she had been sick when I was under the doctor. And I have been helping to look after the girls myself.
Does it mean much extra work for you?
Well, just a little, you know. A bit of homework, cleaning up and tidying, looking after them.
But you didn't mind?
Well, I didn't mind, no. Everything for the best, because we all have to help one another.
And I felt everywhere that in this little town, at least, evacuation had brought a great deal of joy, and that the mothers of these children need have no fears.
The girls are
quite content. They seem to have chummed up with their new sisters and new brothers, and they are already playing games and rounders and one thing and another. And it's quite the fashion these days for parties of 20 and 30 to set off on little hiking expeditions and take their lunch baskets. And of course, they're all carrying their gas masks. Safety first, they're playing.
But of course, children weren't the only ones to be evacuated. And when the news of the recording van had spread through the town, some of the mothers with young children who had left Manchester on the second day arrived with perambulators and shopping baskets to tell their story.
The home that I'm in was a newly married couple, and the home is exceedingly beautiful, a beautiful home indeed. And they both go out to work, so of course I keep myself and the two little ones, and I try to make up to them by cleaning up for them, little things like that, leaving the table prepared for dinner time. And I come out of the house with the kiddies so that when they come home to dinner, they've only got to sort of get it ready, and they have the privacy of their own home for dinner time. And they're making quite a fuss of the children now that I felt rather uncomfortable on first arriving there. And with it being such a lovely home and being everything so new, and of course you can't tie kiddies down, as everyone knows, but I've lost all that embarrassment now, and they're quite at home, and so are we.
And this strange experiment can only be worked successfully and without too much unhappiness on either side if everyone is as considerate as Mrs. Dennison. But the mothers we talked to had one grievance. They hadn't enough to do. They were used to running a home of their own and looking after a large family, and they weren't sure that they liked this enforced idleness.
Very good idea. Yeah. What do you do with your spare time? I suppose you've got more spare time here than you had at home.
Well, that is the only trouble. I'm not used to an idle life, and where we're staying, they don't want us to do anything. They want us to try and make a holiday of it. But we would rather help them. But they tell us to go out and get the benefit of the fresh air while we can, because they know that we've had just an ordinary, hard-working life at home, and they tell us to make the best of it while we're here.
We talked to many mothers in this little town, but the stories didn't vary much. Most of them had felt a great desire to get back to their husbands when they heard that we were at war, and they weren't finding it easy to stay on, even though they were in a safe area. And here, finally, is the youngest child we interviewed. He was 2.5, and from this rather one-sided conversation, we can get some idea of how well he was treated.
Yeah, tell this lady what you've got in that. You've got a nice... Got nice bus. Got a nice bus. And the lady gave you a cot. Did the lady give you a cot? Yes. And what has it got? See? No. Nice clothes, hasn't it? Yes. And the lady gave us a wash bowl for you, hasn't she? Yes. And a table specially for you. And hasn't she been very nice? Yes. Hey? And do you like being here? Yes. And we always go in tatters, aren't we? Hey? Yes. Helen, here, don't be silly. Here, I want to talk to you. Helen, isn't it like when Mummy and Daddy went to the Isle of Man, didn't we? And we're always going out, aren't we? Getting washed and then we go out again. Yes. Don't we? And he's had a lot of nice toys, haven't you?
And here is Terence's mother summing up the whole situation.
And the children are quite happy. Just they want little toys, of course, and they ask for the moon. Still, they're doing very well, and I think they're quite delighted with it. Of course, they think they're on holiday, and we're trying to keep all fears of everything as regards the war out of their little minds, and they're very happy indeed.
The foster parents may not be able to give their new children the moon, but they will do all that they can to make them happy in their new homes and to keep fears away from them. And you mothers who've had to send your children away and are worried and unhappy about them, If you were in a position to receive these refugee children, would you harden your hearts against them and refuse them comfort and affection? Of course not, and neither will anyone else.